Is joining us tonight by phone. Thank you very much for your time, Governor-elect.
My pleasure, Liz.
So you have a big announcement today, and it comes actually on the same day that there is a big GM IPO, and also that Steve Ratner has settled officially with the SEC. So is that all serendipitous? How did it all come to be?
Well, the action of the SEC settling and our suing, actually were discussions that we've been talking about for many months. My office, often operates in cooperation with the SEC. Sometimes we both settle, sometimes we both bring in action, and sometimes we part company, and that's what we decided to do here. My office actually has broader authority than the SEC, and the SEC chose to settle the case. I believe justice has not yet been done, and that's why we're going forward. For my office, Liz, this is basically, as I'm wrapping up affairs here, for obvious reasons, this is really the culmination of 4 years of cases we've done on public integrity cases, corruption in the New York State Comptroller's office.
Right. So you have a statement now from Steve Ratner. He put out a statement saying that he will not, quote, be bullied simply because the Attorney General's office prefers political considerations instead of a reasoned assessment of the facts. What is your response to that?
I don't even know what it means. We've been doing this case for many years. I think that Steve Ratner is in many ways the worst example of this fraud. Steve Ratner is making a lot of comments to the press today. When he came into the office, he took the Fifth Amendment 68 times, Liz. 68 times he took the Fifth Amendment.
Right. What is that, in response to what kind of questions that you were asking him? What kind of questions would he not answer?
He refused to answer questions about his involvement in the corruption in the Comptroller's office. This is a multimillionaire who took $150 million from the state pension fund. He paid off Hank Morris, who was the quote-unquote fixer in the situation. They then offered a special gift to a state employee, the brother of a state employee, who was in charge of making the state investments. So in many ways, this is the worst behavior. We've done many cases, as you know, 7 guilty pleas. We've recovered $140 million. I think this case is the worst behavior we've seen.
And also, then, it's going to probably stretch into the tenure of your successor, no? Eric Schneiderman? I mean, do you feel confident that he's going to be able to handle this case?
I think the case is basically done. It's proven up. And obviously, it will now proceed from a technical point of view. But all the proof is there. Again, this is a 4-year-old case. We've done a lot of work. This is, the situation with Hank Morris and with former Comptroller Alan Hevesy. And this was the last case. I think the facts are very clear in this case from every angle.
Have you, just to, not to interrupt, pardon me, but have you heard at all from Mayor Bloomberg, who endorsed you in the campaign? Because he's very close to Steve Ratner. In fact, Steve Ratner manages his money. Yeah,
look, what's happening here is Steve Ratner, I understand, is a very powerful person in society. I understand that. I understand that he has powerful friends. I'm not going to be intimidated by that, Liz. My job is to do justice. And there's one justice system for all the people, not one justice system for rich people and one justice system for poor people, one justice system for powerful people and one justice system for people who don't have as much power. There's one justice system. The SEC's settlement with Ratner is for $6 million. $6 million is the amount of money he made. And it's not justice to me when you say, okay, give back the money that you took and we'll forget the whole thing.
So you haven't then heard Bloomberg or anybody else, Steve Ratner's behalf? He used to work for the New York Times. I mean, he is, as you mentioned, quite powerful and well-connected. No one has sought to intercede on his behalf?
No, because they know me and they know better than to do that. But on the broader point, Liz, I put people in jail for stealing in the thousands of dollars, right? Because that's our criminal justice system. And if you're a kid and you make a stupid mistake and you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, you can do 10 years in a state prison. Well, just because you're a Wall Street person, the justice should be applied the same way. And no special treatment for anyone.
You actually yesterday announced a settlement with ExxonMobil. Then today you have these two lawsuits. And as you mentioned, you're sort of cleaning things up, if you will, in the AG's office before you move on to the governor's office. Will we see other things coming down the pike? I mean, you have almost 2 months now left. I mean, for example, there's some issues with Pedro Espada, the former majority leader, or soon-to-be former, rather, majority leader of the Senate. Might we see something coming down the pike on him or any other of the cases that you have outstanding?
To the extent, Liz, I can resolve cases, I am going to, because these are just the way the office works. These are cases that I started, the cases that I know, cases that I put together. So I'm in the best position to resolve them. And then the next Attorney General can come in and start his own cases with a blank slate. So, yes, to the extent I can resolve cases, I am purposefully setting out to do that.
But in the case of Pedro Espada, you're also working in conjunction with the federal government, are you not? So there's some things that you can't control in terms of that timeline?
That is exactly right.
Right. Just, I want to ask you about a couple other things that are happening today, if you don't mind. You had asked yesterday that the Chief Judge, Jonathan Littman, intercede to fast-track those 3 cliffhanger races in the state Senate. And today you got a response, a favorable response, that he says he wants those wrapped up before the end of the year. Do you feel that that will be adequate, that justice will actually be served, every vote will be counted, and it will be fair? Or do you think that that seems to me it could benefit the Republicans?
Actually, I think this is a welcome surprise. Look at this, Liz. Government is working, believe it or not. State government is functioning.
Yeah.
Open the champagne bottles. We're not even waiting for New Year's Eve. I called upon the Chief Judge yesterday to, if he thought it correct, to come up with an expedited schedule, meaning every vote should be counted in these races. We understand that. We want a full count, a fair count, but we also want an expeditious count because we don't want chaos in January. We don't want to continue the chaos that has been state government into yet another year.
Well, sure, but right now you have in those cliffhanger races 3 of them. You've got the Republicans ahead in 2, and they've been saying, call it. Well, while the Democrats have been saying, well, let's prolong it, actually, because we still might yet have a chance to pull a rabbit out of a hat. I mean, does this not benefit the Republicans?
No, you will have the same process. You'll just have it faster. In other words, rather than you have a right to appeal, rather than having a delay of 3, 4, 5 weeks before you have your appeal, you'll have your appeal in 3, 4, or 5 days.
But don't they usually do that? Don't they usually expedite elections cases, generally speaking?
Generally, they can expedite election cases. They don't always do it. But then there is, expedite is a relative term. Right. We need decisions by the end of this calendar year.
But you don't have any particular favorite in the matter. You say that you want a functional Senate, that you don't care whether it's Democrats, of course you're a Democrat, or Republicans?
Yeah, that's not what this is about. This is, I sent a letter as the Attorney General. I'm also the governor-elect, as you said. I'm wearing a couple of hats here. But count the votes. Count the Democratic votes, count the Republican votes, count the blank votes. Just count the votes. Count them fairly, but count them quickly.
Well, before I let you go, and I appreciate your time, you are working on your transition, of course, but we haven't heard anything about your inauguration. You mentioned just now New Year's Eve. We've seen for a while, we saw Eliot Spitzer have this very large outside inauguration and swearing in. Of course, the state is in a fiscal morass. I'm just curious if you have any plans yet.
It's a good question, Liz. We're talking that through now. And I haven't made any final decisions on the inauguration.
So you don't know, in terms of paying for it, this was an issue also for former Governor Pataki. He got in a little hot water when he was raising money to pay for the inauguration. Do you know if you'll pay for it out of campaign funds, or you just haven't planned for it at all yet?
I'm thinking of asking YNN to sponsor the inauguration, actually.
Well, you could do it right here in our studios. We would really enjoy that. You could be here. We could get your girls with us, and we'll have a little swearing in with your dad, and it'll be great.
Can you hold the Bible?
I don't know. I don't know if that's legal. So, okay, Governor-elect, I want to thank you very much for joining us by phone this evening. Andrew Cuomo, thanks.
Thanks very much, Liz.